Hello, we're finishing up Chapter 6. We're going to finish up with Piaget and move on to the contributions of Lev Vygotsky. Now, one of the questions we have related to Piaget's theory is how does adult cognition change, if it even does? How do adult formal operations differ from adolescent formal operations? We know that both can engage in abstract logical thinking. However, this is where the quantity of knowledge begins to have an impact. As I mentioned earlier, we also know that not all adults reach that formal operations stage. Compared to adolescents, adults tend to be more realistic. They recognize that compromise, getting some of what you want, is better than holding a line and risking getting none of what you want. It is also pragmatic. That is, we switch from acquiring the knowledge to applying the knowledge. Adults also recognize that things typically aren't black or white, right or wrong, in, out, up, down. No matter how flat the pancake may be, it still has two sides. So, is there anything after formal operations? This has been debated among the neo-Piagetians. There is the question as to whether there is another qualitative stage of thinking, or if we're just looking at a substage at the very top of formal operations. With post-formal thought, we tend to see individuals operating at a level where they strive to get this complete picture of problem situations. They focus on being realistic and taking in all aspects of an issue. This is sometimes referred to as problem finding. That is, they try to figure out what is really broken and how can it be fixed or at least improved. Before we leave Piaget, there are 2 points to ponder. The first should be easy. Is Piaget's theory continuous, or is he discontinuous? Now, I hope you had no problems with this question. He is, of course, discontinuous. He is a stage theorist, distinct stages, discrete steps. Now, the second question can be a little more difficult. Does Piaget's theory emphasize nature, or does it emphasize nurture? Give you a moment on this one to think. Here, the answer is nature. Piaget felt that children automatically pass through these stages, regardless of what might be happening environmentally. He did not think that we could accelerate the learning process. Now, the next cognitive theorist I want to talk about is this man. This is Lev Vygotsky. He was born 1896. That also happens to be the year that Jean Piaget was born, and a psychologist we haven't talked about yet, David Wexler. Lev graduated with a degree in law. He went on to get a PhD in psychology in 1925. He had a wide range of interests, including art and linguistics, but focused most of his career on how children learned. He died at 37 from tuberculosis, and much of his work was buried. We think it was primarily because he was Jewish. It didn't begin to seep out of the Soviet Union until the 1970s. And with the fall of the Soviet Union and the development of the internet, it became widely known in the Western world. Now, Vygotsky was interested in the work of Alfred Binet. I mentioned him earlier. This was the individual Piaget worked for. They were developing the first aptitude test. It became known as an IQ test. Vygotsky did not feel that aptitude was a straightforward, you know something or you don't. He felt that we would function within a range of knowledge. He termed this the zone of proximal development. Now, with this zone of proximal development, we have tasks that we know and can demonstrate easily. But we also have tasks that with guidance and support, we can sometimes demonstrate. Teachers, parents, peers, they all help us function at that higher level. We offer different kinds of supports known as scaffolding. This zone changes from activity to activity. It can change from day to day. Now, a lot of Vygotsky's theories relate to how language and intelligence are interconnected. He felt that we used language as a tool to help us think. Now, not only did Vygotsky profoundly influence our educational system, this is why many of you probably spent so much time working in peer groups, but it also impacted our understanding of preschool programming, especially the role of language. Now, most people are not aware that you are most likely to be expelled from an educational program when you are in preschool. I used to work extensively with these little preschool expellees. I can tell you now that inevitably I would find that these little people would demonstrate a language disorder. Vygotsky says we use language to understand others. We use it to communicate our own needs, and we use it to modulate our behavior. Without language, you may not understand what is being asked of you, and you can't let anyone know that you're experiencing a problem. We also can't use language to remind ourselves what kind of behavior we should be exhibiting. We find that without verbal language, we end up communicating or trying to communicate by using our bodies. I promise you that any time you communicate with your body, you're probably in trouble. Whether you're 3 or 33 or 63, you put your hands on someone else without their express permission, you're probably in trouble. We would spend a lot of time in our preschool class structuring it both so that language was not a requirement for success, picture symbols, visual calendars, routines, etc., and we also spent a lot of time poking more and more language into these 3 and 4-year-olds. Vygotsky tells us to use ongoing assessment with children and take advantage of where they are in the ZPD. He encouraged us to use peers as teachers, monitor and encourage private speech. In fact, give people what they should be saying to themselves to solve a problem. Meaning and relevancy is very important in learning. In our preschool class, we spent a lot of time poking language into them during snack time. Now, before we leave Vygotsky, let's answer those same questions we had about Piaget's theory. Did Vygotsky believe that cognitive development was continuous or discontinuous? Hopefully you said continuous. There's no inkling that he felt we passed through stages. Development is this gradual, ongoing process. Now, did Vygotsky feel that nature or nurture was a more important factor in development? Again, I hope you heard that Vygotsky stressed how impactful teachers, parents, even peers can be on a child's development. That makes him a nurture theorist. Finishing up this chapter and leaving it behind with some final thoughts from Vygotsky, he felt that cognitive skills can only be understood when they're evaluated within that bigger picture. He felt there is a strong relationship between cognition and language, and he felt that your sociocultural background, your lifetime of experiences, and prior learning all impact on your cognitive functioning. This is the end of Chapter 6. We'll pick up with a long chapter, Chapter 7, on information processing next.